Marty emailed me, said he wouldn't be here to read today. All right. So I think I'm just going to do it for the sake of speed and getting to the points that we want. I never want to hurt Marty's feelings by taking his job away, but he's not with us, so I'm gonna step in. So let's just figure out where we are. Atem Nitzavim. This is always the Torah portion the week before Rosh Hashanah, or the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. So it is, and it is read again on Yom Kippur Day.
Oh.
So there are certain Torah portions that are read twice a year because they're read in sequence, and they're also read on certain holidays, for example. Hold on, I'm letting more people in. And so this, you're going to hear this Shabbat, tomorrow morning, Tuesday, Thursday, and you're going to hear it on Yom Kippur. Okay? And one of the questions we're going to be talking about today is why? Why this one for Yom Kippur? We're not the first to ask that question. So we'll look at some of those answers. So let's begin. And we'll just get rolling here. So we go to Deuteronomy 29, verse 9. 29:9. And you can, if you're on your phone or you have the book or whatever, that's where we are. Okay, so let's say the blessing and off we'll go. Okay, and for those of you who may not, you're right, Ben, that's a good idea. Let's all mute until we want to say something or whatever, because there's some background noise. So let's say the blessing together. Those of you who know it, of course, join me. Those of you who don't, it begins the way they always do and ends with the words la'asok b'divrei Torah. So here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. Ready? La'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who sanctifies us with mitzvot and commands us to busy ourselves with Torah. Okay? So, hey, Deborah. Finally, you got your better half in the room, David. Okay, here we go. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem. Here we go. Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, "You have seen all that the Lord did before your very eyes in the land of Egypt." I'm sorry, I got to go to verse 9. We don't need that run up for last week. You stand this day, Atem Nitzavim, you stand this day, all of you, before the Lord your God. And then we go on to understand what all of you means. Your tribal heads, your elders, and your officials, and all the men of Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger within your camp, from the wood chopper to the water drawer. And so we have here a hierarchy of ancient Israelite or Hebrew society. The whole structure is laid out right there, and of course it's very similar to any society. There are levels. It's stratified and it's hierarchical. But it gets surprising. The differentiator here between this list and other lists is what's next. To enter into the brit. A brit means a contract or a covenant. So a bris, when we say bris, that's the Ashkenazi pronunciation of the word brit. Bris does not mean circumcision. There is a brit milah, which is the covenant of circumcision. But there are other britot actually. There are other contracts covenants, many others, beyond the covenant of circumcision. It's a contract, a covenant, a commitment. And here's where it gets really interesting. To enter into the covenant of the Lord your God, which the Lord your God is concluding with you this day, with its sanctions, to the end that he may establish you this day as his people and be your God, as he promised you and as he swore to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now here's where it gets interesting. I make this covenant with its sanctions, not with you alone, not just with those of you standing here, which, according to the text, is all of ancient Israelite society. All 600,000 of the Jews who got up and walked out of Egypt. We know that's, of course, a narrative, not a history. And everyone from the wealthiest and most influential to the poorest and seemingly most inconsequential members of your society, including, by the way, non-Jews, the strangers among you, the others, the outsiders. Because there's a class of individuals that in English is translated as resident aliens. It doesn't sound great these days. It sounds horrible these days. But in the biblical period, to be a resident alien was to be a person who, despite not being a Jew, had chosen to cast their lot with the Jewish people. It was an honorable category of individuals. There was nothing negative about it. They too are a part of this commitment. But, so I make this covenant with its sanctions, not with you alone, not with this entire 2 or 3 generations of Jews and non-Jews who cast their lot with the Jews, but both with those who are standing here with us this day before the Lord our God, and with those who are not with us here this day. Meaning what? You're muted. Let's go Karen and then David. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the dead, those who died, those who came before us.
Oh, that's so interesting.
No, you don't like that.
No, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm saying it's interesting. That's not like, oh, she has a nice personality. No, I mean, it's like, it's legit interesting. David?
The future, the unborn.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how it, Karen. Now, there is no way to know specifically because it's an ambiguous phrase, those who are not here. What does that mean? It's ambiguous, and it's very interesting. I've never heard anyone say, well, it's your commitment to those who preceded you, to Abraham, Isaac, to your ancestors. Very interesting. Like, don't drop the torch here. But the rabbis have always interpreted it as David has here, to mean those yet unborn, future generations. So in other words, our ancestors made a commitment of fidelity to a covenant, not only for themselves, but for generations of people they would never know. And therefore, on Yom Kippur, when we hear these words, you are standing here this day, all of you, the tradition, the rabbis have always understood that to say, we were all standing at Sinai, metaphorically. We were all part of this deal and we all are obligated to it. And that our ancestors lived in ways to enable us to inherit that tradition. And that is how it is generally understood. And then the question is, well, how can one generation commit another generation to any obligation? And it's really not a question asked that overtly in any way in the literature, because Jews assume, I'm saying traditional Jews, just accept that, yes, this is our inheritance and we are responsible for it. Now, I forgot to get something I'm going to run away from my screen for a few seconds because there's something I want to show you. And it's in the laundry room, and I forgot to grab it. So hold on 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, I got it. All right, I want to show you something. Everybody see this?
Seventh generation.
This is one of a line of home cleaning products. You can get it at Whole Foods, probably a lot of other places too, called Seventh Generation. Does anyone know where that brand name comes from?
Okay, we're studying the Bible, so it's got to be something from the Bible. No?
I know where it came from.
You do. Gay, tell us.
The Native American belief that whatever they do needs to be sustainable for at least 7 generations.
You're very close. You're very close. It comes from the law of the great Iroquois nation, which says when the elders deliberate, they must consider the impact of their decision upon the 7th generation to come. That's where this comes from. It's an environmentally friendly product line because it's doing just that. We're thinking about the effect we will have today, 7 generations to follow.
Where did the 7 come from? Okay.
Ask the Iroquois. Why are there 7 days in a week? I don't know.
Okay.
There are a lot of 7s in the way societies and cultures are, organized. There are a lot of 10s for obvious reasons too. The reason for all the 10s is how easy it was for carpenters to divide things when it was an even number, 10 or 12 inches, things like that. But we digress. Now, imagine a world in which our leaders and we considered the effect of our decisions on the 7th generation to follow. It would be a very different place, and I think a much better place. And this 7th generation idea is younger than this idea from Nitzavim that everything you do as a Jew must be seen through this prism of, let's just put it sort of simply, the long game. And you know this when you hear Jews say things like Ledor Vador, from generation to generation. They never complete the sentence, by the way, which is Ledor Vador, from generation to generation. Nagid Godlecha, we will speak of your greatness, God. It's a theological imperative. It's not really anything other than that, but that's a lot. So this is deeply embedded in the Jewish psyche. And we can never have too much of it. This idea that how we behave today should be understood within the context of what it will mean 150, 200 years from now. Back then, a generation was probably about 15 or 20 years old, and then the next generation, people got married at 12 and 13 and started their families. So it was a briefer period of time, but still you get the idea. The way I like to summarize this mentality is that it's a Jewish imperative to live as a good ancestor. We don't think of ourselves as ancestors. Every one of us on this Zoom is an ancestor, just not yet.
How refreshing.
Well, it is an opportunity. It is, and it does change the way we think if we see ourselves in that context. And jokingly, I used to say to the board, I always manage to keep the temple just on the edge of solvency, which is where I think it should be, because otherwise you're not progressing. And when the board would get nervous about it, Steve, we have all this debt. I'd say, well, it's really not that much if you amortize it over 4,000 years. And I was only kind of joking. Kind of, because it was like, so what? What? So what? We're doing the right thing for future generations. And by the way, we are a not-for-profit, which was a very hard concept for some people. So this thinking is deeply embedded, and it so much of it comes from this Torah portion. And it may be one of the reasons the rabbis chose it, because we reaffirm our commitments during the High Holy Days. There are other reasons that we're going to get into. So let me pause for any comments, thoughts. Rebecca, unmute. There you go.
First, I'd like to acknowledge that I really appreciated Karen's comment about recognizing the dead, because it plays into what I'm about to say, and that it's my understanding that this verse was written on the return from Babylon. So perhaps they were thinking of their ancestors and then projecting into the future.
Well, I agree with half of what you're saying, because I may agree with all of it, but we don't know. We don't know. It's an ambiguous piece of language. We don't know what they meant. However, I would say that this idea of return, which we're going to get into, Rebecca, is very much a part of what we're going to delve into next. I think the word return in some form is mentioned 7 times in this Torah portion, something like that, which starts to tell us something about why it would be, why. And the word for return, of course, is shuv, from teshuvah. Teshuvah does not mean to repent. It means to turn, to redirect. And that, and return from exile, of course, because let's remember now the book of Deuteronomy. I'm going to grossly oversimplify the book of Deuteronomy to make a simple point. The book of Deuteronomy is essentially old-time religion. If you obey, you prosper. If you sin, you suffer. Now you know everything in the book of Deuteronomy. And obviously possessing the land and return to the land of Israel was dependent not upon our militaristic abilities, but upon our moral standings, which is a very important thing to talk about right now. Yes, biblically, we often fought horrible, bloody battles for Israel, but we also were often exiled for poor behavior, shall we say, which the book of Deuteronomy would call sin.
Boy, are we returning?
Right, and here we are.
You know,
And particularly in the current zeitgeist. So the book of Deuteronomy has this overarching theme that we possess the land when we're righteous, and we're exiled when we sin, when we're not, when we lose our way. So teshuvah is not so much repentant, because repentance is a process that leads to the turning, right? And that word appears, let me see, I'm sure I have it in the notes here. Give me a second. Yeah, 7 times. I was right. What do you know? So that's a part of it too. And these are both very powerful currents in Judaism. Anyone else I want to hear from? Yeah, Brad, go ahead. Did you go to Northwestern, Brad?
3 generations of Northwestern.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
And I know you did too, Rabbi.
I did. How two people so brilliant could be on one Zoom is beyond me. And we're humble
Rabbi,
too, aren't we? We're very humble. All right, go ahead, please, Brad.
Rabbi, you talked about there being multiple covenants. I'm wondering which covenant this is, because if our ancestors have already bound us in covenant, why do we still feel the need to execute covenants if we're already bound?
I wouldn't say execute as much as reaffirm and renew.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because it's not that this is a new agreement we make in the future. It's an agreement we reaffirm. For example, the covenant of circumcision is roughly 3,500 years old, as far as we know. Now, the fact that we continue to circumcise Jewish baby boys on the 8th day is a reaffirmation. It's not a new covenant. It's not a new deal. It's our commitment to observing and the tenets of a pre-existing covenant. And by the way, of course now it's volitional. We can choose whether or not to do that. But we're not really creating new covenants. We're constantly reaffirming and returning to these imperatives. Does that help?
Well, if somebody has not had a brit, are they still in a covenant then
They're
with
not.
God?
They're not in that covenant. I mean, well, they abrogated their duties under the terms of the deal. Let's put it that way. I'm no lawyer, but I think that's how it would shake down. Like, hey, you're free to ignore this imperative, but it is the imperative. And we're not changing the imperative, for you. You can opt out. But again, that's where sort of, Brad, this is called the Deuteronomic formulation. You obey, you prosper, you sin, you suffer. Okay? You can disobey, but the old time religion view of the Torah, thank God we've evolved, but this is where we are today in this parsha. You're going to suffer if you don't uphold your end of the deal. I hope that, I don't know, I lost you, Brad. Oh, there you are. So that's really, I think, how any Orthodox rabbi would say, would put, you're free to eat that whatever,
Right.
but you're abrogating the covenant, and good luck to you. Yeah, let me just see. Susan and I don't know who else, but Susan and then Ellen and Mark, okay? Susan, please.
So, when you showed the seventh generation, I'm glad you did. I didn't know it was from the Iroquois, but it's also in the Bible, and the blessings and curses. It
Yes.
goes various generations, and it's not just one time, many times in the Bible. So,
Right. And this idea, Susan, for me, I don't know, maybe I'm making more of this than you guys feel or believe is accurate. But for me, the idea of living as a good ancestor, being aware of that role that we will play, and in fact are playing right now, is the crucial Jewish
Continuity of Judaism.
it's the crucial engine of Jewish commitment and survival, that we are living beyond ourselves, even within our own lives.
yeah, so our day schools are important as number one. And number two, as several have pointed out, for those who are not here, well, genetically, well, a lot of things we don't choose, who our parents will be, where we're born, when we're born, what traits we inherit, our eye color, brains.
Yes. And the where and the when was determined before we were born.
Yeah.
And now we're even reinterpreting the how
We're born.
how we're conceived.
Yeah.
Right? So but the commitment to transmit these values generationally. We've all heard, any Jews ever try to raise money from another Jew tells the story about the carob tree, and the old man's planting the carob tree. Why are you planting that tree at your age? It takes so long to bear fruit. And he says, just as others planted for me, I plant for those yet to come. This is woven in everywhere. I mean, this Lador Vador thing. I drive down Beverly Glen a lot when I'm going anywhere. And I drive by Temple Sinai, and there's a big Torah with arms around it on the facade of the building. And what does it say? Ledor vador. It's older hands handing it down to younger hands. This is the essence of being a Jew. We live beyond ourselves. I also think it's the essence of a fulfilling life, period, not just for Jews. When you're living for something beyond your own immediate life and concerns. But that's a bigger idea. And this idea that we were all at Sinai, we are all interconnected, interrelated, even, and this is where the stranger part is so important, even people who are not genetically Jews. This is why Jewish law says once a person chooses to become a Jew, you never refer to their former status. Never. I never call anyone a convert because they're a Jew. That's it. Full stop. And all of this is about, of course, the perpetuation of our ideals and our faith. So, and the rabbinic retort to, well, I wasn't there, I didn't agree to this. The rabbinic retort, metaphorically, is, yes, you were there. We were all there because our ancestors were there. And the DNA point, yeah, it's a good point.
Could I ask a quick question?
Of course.
You can't see me, I think, probably because I have.
I can see you. I can see you.
Oh, okay. Were women also present, and could
Yes.
okay, because I
Well,
wasn't.
look what it says, though. Look what it says.
It says the men. That I thought.
Oh, no,
I
keep
heard you
going.
say the men.
Keep going. And the wives.
Oh, I didn't see the wives part. Okay.
It doesn't say women, though. It says wives. And of course, we're talking about a society in which perpetuation of the species was everything. But it should have said women, of course. God should not be in the masculine. But we're talking about a very old text. But women are recognized, but interestingly and maybe disappointingly now, but certainly not then, for their role as wives and mothers.
I didn't hear the and wives part, probably because I was here listening for men and women, not know. So
Yeah.
all right, very good. I just was wondering if that was also not just future generations, but also like everyone who was at home who wasn't,
This was as all-inclusive a manifesto as the Torah has for Jews and for covenants. Now there are, when I said there are no new covenants, there are, but they're not given the same weight as a biblical or rabbinic period covenant. Like now we have something called Brit Bat, the covenant of the daughter, and we have these naming ceremonies, and some people even want to do it on the 8th day, etc. But it doesn't hold the same currency in the Orthodox community. They think it's just nonsense. Why would you do that? We're not commanded to do that. But the more religiously liberal Jewish community, we do create new covenants. We do create new ceremonies and rituals around people who were excluded, frankly, from so much during the rabbinic period 2,000 years ago. The deaf weren't allowed to study Torah. Because they were considered unteachable. Now, what do you do when the deaf become teachable? Do you change the law? Well, yes and no. And we've had this conversation many times, the spirit versus the letter of the law. I keep something I call ethical kashrut, and an Orthodox rabbi would laugh me off the stage. So we do evolve. Just to explain quickly, ethical kashrut is, for me, the spirit of the laws of slaughtering for animals was because at the time those laws were written, that they required that you take an animal's life in the most humane way possible. A blade with no nicks on it, super sharp, the animal had to be killed, slaughtered with one swipe of the blade across the carotid artery. It had to be done in the most painless way possible at the time. What do we do today when there are less painful ways than that to euthanize, harvest, whatever word you want to use, an animal? Do we still obey the letter of the law, knowing it is now contrary to the spirit of the law?
Huh.
Or do we evolve? And this is really where the rubber meets the road in Jewish movements. And
But to advance does not mean you have to lose.
say that again.
To advance does not mean you have to lose.
Unless you see it as disobeying the word of God. Right? You know, you're not supposed to kindle a fire on Shabbat. Why? When that was written, kindling a fire was a hell of a lot of work. Does that mean I shouldn't turn my stove on to make, my favorite brisket for Shabbos dinner to have people over? No. You got to make your decision. And then there are these workarounds. So an Orthodox Jew will put a timer on the lamp. They won't flip the switch. The timer will flip the switch. Alexa will flip the switch.
The height of hypocrisy.
Or adaptation. Zachary, who knows?
Room for everyone.
I'm not judgmental about either side of this, but I want to be fair and accurate with really Brad's question about, are there new covenants? There are. Do they carry the same weight? No. Does that matter to everyone? No. Do I care that an Orthodox rabbi doesn't agree that my free range, organic, non-antibiotic, non-GMO chicken that costs $8 million at Erewhon is more kosher than the chicken slaughtered at Zaki Brothers chicken farm? This is where we are. And I don't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with it because both sides of that spectrum are about intention, about taking Judaism seriously and about intention. So I can live with it. But that's just me. On the Orthodox side, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. I think you raise a very interesting point, Rabbi. The Torah was written at a time when they didn't have refrigeration. When they actually, I mean, yeah, it's dated. I mean,
It's both. It was highly advanced and dated. It's both. Right?
So
if you're not going to cherry pick, then you're signing on to a lot of things that I don't think any of us would ascribe to.
May I ask a question? Or really,
Zach, I think I cut you off.
No, you're fine. I put some comments on the side, and I don't want to interrupt your flow, but I think
we'll get to it.
I think that you raised a very good point about legacies and our personal conduct, and we live in very damning times right now, and I just I put those comments on the side. So at your convenience, if you would address them.
I think we're going to have to talk about the elephant in the room, which of course is Gaza. We're going to get to that.
There's another gentleman with gray hair who's been wanting to speak.
Where are you?
here in the corner.
Mark. Oh yeah, Mark, go ahead, please.
Hi.
Mr. Zildjian, please.
I love the idea of thinking of myself as a future ancestor. I mean, I've kind of always thought of that, but I never put it into those words. That's great. But that's not my question. If we are free to ignore the biblical covenants, like the bris, or even the kosher covenants, does that mean that we are excluded from the community that does observe those covenants?
Like the answer to most Jewish questions, yes and no. Okay? Now, I'm not trying to be cute. Are we legally, officially excluded? No. The Talmud says even a Jew who converts to another religion is still a Jew. So are we technically excluded? No. Are we summarily dismissed? Yes. Yes, you're Jews, but you're not practicing Judaism. I've had Orthodox rabbis to say that to me in public on a panel. You're Jewish, but you're not, whatever you're doing, it's not Judaism.
Did you remind him that 80% of the occupants in Israel are non-practicing Jews?
No, this had nothing to do with Israel. No. What I remind him of, and this drives the Orthodox crazy, is that if Moses or Aaron walked into the most Orthodox synagogue in the world, they would have no idea what was going on and would not understand most of the rabbinic Hebrew, because biblical Hebrew and rabbinic Hebrew are not the same. They would have no idea what's going on, because for them, going to the temple, there'd be a lot of slaughtering and burning and incense and a high priest. That was Judaism. The temple gets destroyed first in 586 BCE by the Babylonians, then in the year 70 by the Romans. We've said this before in this class. The Jews had to make a choice: evolve or die. We're out of business. The temple's gone. They evolved. They replaced the temple with the synagogue. They replaced the priest with the rabbi. They replaced animal sacrifice with prayer. They replaced the priestly garb with the Torah cover and the crowns and the silver and all of that. They evolved. So the first Reformed Judaism was the orthodoxy of today, that the mythology is that it was delivered at Sinai with the Torah. So these rabbis who are telling me I'm Jewish but not practicing Judaism have frozen themselves in the era of the first Reformation, but it was a Reformation. And they hate that when I point it out. I'll give you a simple example. The Torah says you should not boil a kid in its own mother's milk. That's it. All this milk and meat, you can't have a cheeseburger stuff, that all came 1,500 years later. So, you know, if you know enough, you can kind of point all this out, but you can also understand why they can't accept it. Because what's that game? I think it's called Jenga, you know, the tower with you pull the, for them, this pulls out the one that's going to cause the whole thing to crumble. If you accept that Judaism is an evolutionary faith, including evolves legally, then the whole thing comes tumbling down. If you accept that the Torah wasn't spoken verbatim and spoken and then written down verbatim, spoken by God, written down verbatim, if you remove divine authority from the structure of Torah and Jewish law, then to them, that's Jenga. It's a collapse. Because then human beings get to make their own decisions about observance. So this is, it's both. It's both. You're in and you're out at the same time. You know? Wait, I want to be sure before we go to Sukasa that I got everyone else. Sukasa, please. And then Merle will go to you. Unmute, Sukasa. You got to unmute. Unmute. I don't know what she's saying, but
Here, I got.
there we go. Okay, go ahead.
To ancestors that were
Hey, Sue, try standing still. Stand still, Sue.
Oh, so
Stand.
okay.
Yeah, try standing still. Better.
I'm staying still. So you wrote a book about this, about ethical roles. And I heard an ethical role from my children grandchildren because I want
Hey, Sue.
to.
Sue,
Yeah.
you're breaking up. Is there any way you could type something in the comments?
Well, I'm gonna get about 300 hours of my college to get better.
Okay, go home and then get back on.
Okay.
All right, Merle, please.
Well, what you just said about people making their own decisions, and I see that all the time with friends who criticize my family's participation in our Judaism.
Listen, I'm critical of other people's decisions too, because they're so often made out of convenience rather than intention and educated choice. You know, there are a lot of people, and it's too much trouble, it's too hard, or that's stupid. So I am very critical of some decisions Jews make about their practice, but I don't deny the fact that they have a perfect right to do it. We live in a volitional society. We don't want to live under Sharia law that's, Jewish.
Right.
But people do make very bad decisions. I mean, I'm at odds with a number of rabbis about some of their choices for their community, and they're at odds with me. What matters to me is that these choices are made with integrity and intention and not made simply out of ignorance or convenience.
Right.
So that's where I come down on that. Now, we haven't gotten very far in our text, but productive nevertheless. So I want to move on a little bit, okay? And let me just think about, okay, let's go to 30, verse 1. All right, everybody with me? Here we go. When all these things befall you, in other words, when you don't behave, when all these things befall you, the blessing and the curse that I have set before you, and you take them to heart amidst the various nations to which the Lord your God has banished you. So here we see God's responsible for the diasporic situation we're in because we didn't behave. And here comes that word. And you return. Vishavta ed Adonai. Shavta, you hear that? SHV? That's the root teshuva, which is so often incorrectly translated as repentance. So, and you return to the Lord your God, and you and your children heed God's commandment with all your heart and soul, just as I enjoin upon you this day, then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. Now you can start to see why this is chosen for Yom Kippur. Because Yom Kippur is about when we turn, when we repent and then turn, return to God, return to our faith, return to our people, we're welcome back. Someone, I can't remember who said it, but it's a beautiful quote, which is, home is the place where they have to let you in. Home is the place that when you return there, they have to let you in. That's home. And I can't remember who said it, but it's a good one. And I think we all understand that. There is a place where we can be forgiven, assuming we really do change. There are people who will welcome us back. And of course, on the high holy days, that's God. And this is, and again, this, now I want to jump to the next thing because we only have about, 10 minutes or whatever it is, 15 minutes left. Now, this is a very famous section of this Parsha. This is also why it's read on Yom Kippur. So let's now go to verse 15. No, I want to back up. 11. Let's go to verse 11. Now, you're going to hear this on Yom Kippur. Surely this instruction, and by the way, that's what Torah means, instruction, which I enjoin upon you this day, is not too baffling for you, nor is it beyond reach. It is not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it. Judaism is not fundamentally based on esoteric knowledge. It is not fundamentally based on a professional priestly class required to interpret this complex law for we mere wood choppers and water drawers. This is a very important differentiator between Judaism and other kinds of ancient pagan priesthoods or esoteric roles in leading a community or privileged knowledge. This is the people's instruction, the people's Torah. Torah is available to everyone. And this is very different. It's a much more sort of democratic faith in that sense. There's not a lot of priestcraft in Judaism. Certainly not in rabbinic and modern Judaism. There was some in the biblical period. So it's not esoteric and inaccessible. It's not celestial. You don't need to be a Zoroastrian or an astrologer. Neither it is beyond the sea that you should say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it. It's everywhere. It's portable. And it's available. No, the thing is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart to observe it. It's the people's religion. Even the strangers among us. And this, I think I'm right in saying this anti-esoterica approach is a big part of our success as a people and as a faith. Huge. So let's open that up. I mean, look what we're doing here today. In ancient paganism, there's no way a group of regular people like us would be talking about the Holy Scripture. No way. There was priestcraft and magic involved. What we do is we schlep our kids to Sunday school. Like, it's there. It's available. All of us. No excuses. Open the book. It's not complicated. And frankly, some of us are writers here. And David, I'm interested in your thoughts about this. You know, you and I, we obviously write for different reasons and different things, but we both write to be heard more than read. Is that, you with me on that? Right. So the Torah itself, the language and rhetorical strategy of the Torah text itself is meant to be heard. You could be illiterate and be a Torah scholar. And the sentences in Torah are generally very short. They're kind of stubby. There are not a lot of multi-syllabic words. I mean, there are 2 and 3 syllable words, but there are not a lot of 5 or 10 syllable words in Torah. There are probably none. And it's all about the accessibility. Would you concur, David?
And one of the things that interests me enormously about this last passage is it's not in the heavens, it's not across the sea, it's nearby, it's in your mouth. And it's such an interesting thing to go from heaven to distant lands to your mouth. And that was one of the things I wanted you to address is it's a language, it's a teaching one speaks.
Yes, and it is an oral tradition. It was eventually written down, but our origins are one of an oral tradition, a spoken tradition. And yes, this idea of it's in your, speak Torah, talk about Torah. You don't need to go any further than your own mouth. Yeah, it's pretty graphic too. And also, of course, we know on Yom Kippur, so many of those al-chaitz, those sins that we list, are sins that we commit with our mouths. Gossip, slander, lying, gluttony, all of that. Blasphemy. They're all our mouth. That's why the Talmud says the tongue is so dangerous, it's locked behind 2 gates, our teeth and our lips.
And the reciprocal is Shema.
The Shema is about listening, hearing.
And hearing.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly right. And so that, I think, yes, very astute. And it's kind of it's both a no excuses, I think, clause in Torah, but I think it's much more profound than that. I think it's, guys, this is not, you don't need special training for this. I mean, you've got to learn Hebrew and things, but this is fundamental truth here, and it's not complicated. We make it complicated when scholars get involved, and I think this too is part of the reason that it's read on Yom Kippur. I mean, the 7 uses of shuv, clearly, I mean, that's the no-brainer. But I think, yes, it's this, you are committed to this. It is not complicated, no excuses. You know, I think I've said this before. I've always flirted with this idea of giving a 2 or 3 word sermon on the High Holy Days, or several of them. Like, I would love to get up there and say, behave and sit down. I'd love to get up there and say, mind your own business and sit down. I'd love to get up there and say, be nice and sit down. Torah is kind of like that. I mean, there is detail and all of that. I don't want to overstate it, but it is kind of like pretty basic.
Didn't somebody once say that if you could paraphrase the Torah,
yes,
it would be
that was Hillel.
Do unto others as you would have others do unto
Hillel.
you, and the rest is just
almost right, Brad. This is very interesting. So Hillel was asked.
That's not me.
Hello.
No. Oh, who said that? Who was that?
I said hello.
Oh, sorry, that was Zachary. No, it was Hillel. I'm asking who said it wasn't me. So, look, it's a very deliberate shift in what Hillel is saying, because Hillel did not say, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." It's not what he said. Because what if you're a masochist? What he said was, do not do to others what is hurtful to you. That is achievable and positive, right? So he actually, it's a little bit of a shift that I think is important. But yes, a person who's considering converting to Judaism comes and says, teach me the whole Torah while I'm standing on one foot. And that's what he says. Do not do to others what is hurtful to you. And then he says, the rest is commentary. Zeal Gamor, which means go and learn. Again, this essential quality of Judaism, the essence of it. This is the distillate of it. And there are many of those distillate recipes throughout rabbinic literature. There's a whole bunch of these. The world stands on 3 things: Torah, prayer, Torah, avodah, and gemilut chasadim. It's in the temple's logo, by the way. I chose that for the temple's logo. Torah, meaning learning. Avodah, meaning spirituality and prayer. And gemilut chasadim, which is deeds of loving kindness. The whole world stands on those 3 things, according to the Talmud. But those 3 things are variables in each rabbi's opinion. But the interesting thing to me is they're all this distillation of a lengthy and complex tradition. Yeah, the fewer words, the more important what is being said. I've always felt that. It's a boy. I do. She's gone. No. The most powerful and important things we ever say in our lives are said with 2 words, 3 words.
I have a headache.
Oh, I could go a lot of ways with that one.
Not nice, guys.
No, but think about it. Think about it. I love you. I was wrong. You know the power of that? I was wrong. That's way more powerful than I'm sorry. So this is we're talking today about these fundamental building blocks, and I want to circle back now before we conclude. And I think so much of it is contained in this notion of living as a good ancestor. Okay, last comments?
I wish you had time for the Jimmy Kimmel thing to discuss that whole.
I can tell you this much. I think it's a terrible sign when a society silences its comedians.
Or anybody.
Well, but it's a different thing when it's the comedian. Okay? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with silencing somebody yelling fire in a crowded theater. That right? But when you start silencing or canceling the comics.
But isn't there something in between, silencing and also telling that everything should not be a target of your humor, using
Yes.
another very sensitive issue?
I think this is not something we want to start with less than a
I'm
minute
sorry.
left.
Yeah,
But
I'm sorry.
no, but I do think it's a terrible sign. Go watch Lenny. Go watch the movie Lenny about Lenny Bruce. Dustin Hoffman. Unbelievable performance. Unbelievable. Go watch it and just see what that kind of censorship was about. So I give comedians a lot of latitude. Now, that doesn't mean you can't say what they say. Like, I did a commentary on CBS Sunday Morning where I called out Dave Chappelle pretty overtly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I have to like it or think it's, but the fundamental right to make a joke. There are tasteless jokes, but I don't know that we want to be policing taste. I mean, this is much more complex, of course, but I'm just telling you, it doesn't say anything good about our society. That's, and by the way, neither does what he said. Although I think it was pretty benign compared to many other things, and maybe it was market driven. In which case, I wish they just said it and it wasn't related to it. I don't know. I don't trust very much in the news. I just literally left my breakfast an hour ago with the former producer of NBC News, and she said to me, "There's no journalism anymore. It's gone.
But there should
There's just throwing red meat." So, but fundamentally, it doesn't say anything good about our society when you start silencing the comics. I mean, that's just. I don't think it marks the end of Western civilization as we know it, but it's not. I don't think it's a good sign.
Well, it's our leadership also. We're in a very difficult time because of our leadership. And there's something in between, and that's where I have a problem.
It's all about the in the middle. Yeah, I agree with you. I think either fringe is lost, and now we really need to focus on the middle. What is the best thing we can do? We can each tend our own garden, and we can each think and act like the best ancestors we can be.
Yeah. Somebody wrote in the comments here, wish you'd lead a current event study session. I second that motion.
I think there is one.
We know you.
With you deleting anything is a different issue.
Yeah.
We have every other Wednesday.
But you personally, Rabbi, is that in your future, by the way?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Listen, they want to, let me tell you, they want to strap a broom on my back and have me sweep the place up when I walk around too. So I can only do so much. Sorry.
But isn't it pathetic though, when we have to use everyone else as a target of our humor? There has to be an ability of having a joke without attacking.
There's a lot of self-deprecating humor. There's a lot of situational and observational humor, like Jerry Seinfeld. And Rodney Dangerfield made a living out of being self-deprecating.
Yes.
So the answer, of course, is yes, but it is also true that satire has always been an important social commentary. Right?
Yeah. But it's
it's tough. Saturday Night Live is important, and they have the right to do it their way. I don't want to get in the middle of that. So anyway, let me say this on a much happier note.
Shana Tova.
I really believe the coming year is going to bring us a better world.
Oh,
Amen.
I really, truly do.
Amen.
From your lips to God's ears.
Shana Tova, everybody.
We can only hope.
I'll see you in shul. Okay.
Thank you,
You look
Rabbi.
great with the beard.
You like the beard?
I love it.
All right. Good.
Looks great.
Wonderful. It looks